Hydrogen plays a crucial role in decarbonising industry. End-to-end supply chains for the global hydrogen economy are developing at incredible speed. Plans are ambitious, but what has been implemented already? What policy instruments and financial mechanisms have proven successful? How can the global hydrogen economy equally benefit hydrogen net importers and exporters?
Thank you very much, everyone, for rejoining us, and a very warm welcome to our panelists, whom I will introduce in just a minute. We have heard a lot of excitement here this year, and frankly, just as every year, about green hydrogen. Minister Habeck, for example, referred this morning to its huge potential. And that word, potential, almost always precedes references to hydrogen, and for good reason. As IRENA's Director General referred to this morning, making green hydrogen available and globally competitive by 2030 requires a massive rise in investment and development of complex infrastructure and supply chains. In recent years, countries around the globe have announced ambitious hydrogen strategies and investments, and over the next hour, we want to explore not only the potential, but the reality. What has been achieved so far? What can we learn from best practices? Which financial mechanisms and policy tools are proving most effective in ramping up green hydrogen? And how can we ensure a win-win situation both for hydrogen importing and exporting countries? Decarbonizing industry success stories and challenges of the global hydrogen economy, that's our title. And as you can see, we have a great group of speakers here with us to share their success stories. It's my pleasure to greet them now, and I am going to keep the introduction short, as always, in order to maximize our time for discussion. And I'll begin here in the middle of the panel with His Excellency Jonathan Wilkinson. He is Minister of Natural Resources of Canada. And I am also very pleased to introduce His Excellency Diego Pardo Lorenzo, Minister of Energy from Chile. It is a pleasure to welcome His Excellency Omar Paganini, Minister of Industry for Energy and Mining in Uruguay. And also very pleased to welcome His Excellency João Baptista Borges, Minister of Energy and Water for Angola. And just about to come up on stage is our last live speaker here with us in the room. Flavia Royon is State Secretary of Energy in the Ministry of Economy of Argentina. Welcome to you, and we did just get a start so that you could make a grand entrance onto the stage. Welcome to you. And finally, I would like to welcome here with us Daria Nochevnik. She is Director for Policy and Partnerships for the Hydrogen Council of leading industry players established at the World Economic Forum. With just over a dozen members 5 years ago, it has now grown to 150 multinational companies, a good indicator of that buzz surrounding green hydrogen that I mentioned. And finally, it's a pleasure to welcome, joining us remotely, Clara Baumann. She is COO of the e-fuels company HIF Global, where she's responsible for running global operations. And she's also a director of AUSCHAM, the Australian-Chilean Chamber of Commerce. Before we hear from our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you to weigh in on our audience question. If you'll please get out your mobile devices. Here is the question. You see the barcode. If you're not on Slido yet, that's how you get there. And the question is this: which field looks most promising for large-scale application of green hydrogen or its derivatives in the near future? So we have as choices industrial processes, steel, cement, chemicals, heavy industries, mobility, shipping, aviation, heating, or power generation. So keep on voting if you would please, and we'll come back to that result a little bit later. And as you see, dear ladies and gentlemen, we have impressive representation on this panel from Latin America, not least reflecting Chancellor Scholz's recent visit to the region. And some of our speakers will be giving their remarks in Spanish and Portuguese, so please do have your headsets ready if you wish to have translation. And we're a big panel, so let's try to keep it concise and interactive, not least because this is sort of the post-lunch session in a way. So I'm asking, please, 3 minutes or less if you can do it. And I will begin, not in Latin America, but in Canada, if I may, which as a country with an exceptionally high share of renewables in its power mix is the third largest producer of hydropower worldwide, and with some very big aspirations also in the area of hydrogen. So, Minister Wilkinson, can you tell us more about Canada's success story and what are some of your operational flagship projects of the country and how you plan to ramp up large-scale commercial production of green hydrogen within the next 2 years, as I understand it?
Well, let me start perhaps by being a little bit controversial. I don't like the colors, green, blue, purple, turquoise, all of that. I actually think we are far better off to talk about the carbon intensity of hydrogen and look at ultra-low carbon sources of hydrogen. That can include the pathway from electrolysis, but it can also include natural gas with high levels of carbon capture. And in Eastern Canada, we are focused on electrolysis-based hydrogen, and in Western Canada, probably more on natural gas-based hydrogen production. Clearly, we are one of the world's largest producers of hydrogen presently, largely for industrial applications, including steel manufacturing and edible oils processing, oil and gas. And so the low-hanging fruit for Canada, obviously, is starting with displacing high-carbon hydrogen with ultra-low-carbon hydrogen. That's how we build a domestic market for low-carbon hydrogen, as we look to think about building large-scale projects that will enable the export of hydrogen to countries including Germany. And so we are in the process of actually working through to build that domestic market, as well as actually looking at projects that can enable the export to hydrogen. We had Chancellor Schmidt and Vice Chancellor Habeck with us just 6 months ago. We have a number of large-scale projects on the eastern coast of Canada that are really focused on wind to hydrogen and export to Germany. We have large-scale projects in Western Canada led by Air Products, for example, which are actually focused on the other pathway. But so Canada sees this as an enormous opportunity for us to reduce our carbon footprint within the country, but also to help other countries with respect to reducing their carbon emissions.
Thank you very much. And certainly you're not alone with your opening emphasis on do we need to get caught up on colors? So thank you very much for that. Let me go over to Minister Pardo now. And Chile is also aiming high. Your national green hydrogen strategy aspires to produce, quote, the cheapest green hydrogen on the planet by the end of this decade. How far are you in making green hydrogen cost competitive?
Thank you. Clara is there. He can tell a little bit more about Clara Bowman. Is on the screen. She can tell a little bit more about Harwani, this plant of synthetic fuel that it's in Magallanes, and that it's currently producing synthetic fuels. And of course, the first thing is getting the product ready, and then we can discuss on how to bringing down the costs by scaling up projects. But we're just right now focusing on getting a lot of small-scale projects going. We have Harwani in Magallanes. We have others. We just recently replaced the diesel in a forklift. In the forklifts that run in a center by logistics center. We are also replacing the diesel in the ventilation of a mining project, and we are the last development we had by the end of the year. We are mixing natural gas and hydrogen with in order to provide residential heating in a small town in the north of Chile. This in particular, Clara will talk more about Haruoni, which is a fantastic project. But this last one, it is also important because it helps us to show real citizens the benefits that we can get from green economy by bringing down the cost of heating. Plenty of more other projects are to come. Right now, we are focusing on these small-scale projects being able to get operational. After that, we will try to find ways of scaling up production and bringing down costs.
Thank you very much. Just a quick word, if I may. What would you define as the biggest challenges that you face as you move forward with this aspiration?
So we have to find ways in which internal demand complement international demand. So international demand for green hydrogen derivatives is a little bit uncertain today. So I think we all agree that at some point we'll materialize this demand, but it's hard to see right now exactly how and how much. In what dates and how much would everybody different countries on the world will require. So we have a little bigger handle on internal demand. So we're trying to work on internal uses for green hydrogen and derivatives so they can provide a buffer to projects. And this should probably help them to find bankable projects that are being able to look for outside financing. And after we are able to do that, then scaling up is easier. But right now, our focus is try to find ways of make internal demand compatible with the current schedule for international demand.
Thank you very much. And interesting that you say that, given the question that I wanted to pose now to Minister Paganini. At last year's Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue, and it's really for you, it's a welcome back, isn't it? Because you spoke here as well last year. You declared that Uruguay is well positioned to export green hydrogen and derivatives to Europe and other continents because of your large share of renewables in your electricity mix, but also because of relatively low domestic energy demand, interestingly enough. Since then, Uruguay has published a green hydrogen roadmap. How much progress have you made in building the groundwork for green hydrogen exports? And what can you share about your lessons learned?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, we're doing many things to put this program together. We have launched what is called the H2U program. It's an overall overarching program with Uruguayan hydrogen. Has many components. One is the innovation and research component. In that sense, we made an RFP for pilot projects that is about to be awarded. We also made an agreement with BMBF from Germany for researchers to come and go and to develop capabilities. That's one of the components. The other is H2U Invest. That program is aimed at attracting projects to Uruguay for export, mostly because, as you said, our scale is small to have a competitive project with a big scale that needs exports. That is the main challenge, the egg and chicken paradox, where we need off-taking so that we can make these projects bankable. Happily, we have more than 4 projects on the pipeline, some of them from German companies, that are already in the engineering phase, and they have to decide investment shortly. We hope to have some of these projects confirmed before the end of next year. And of course, they are projects that for Uruguay are big, so they need to bring their own renewable capability. Even though we have nearly 100% green grid, we have to add capabilities, additionality, of course. And we are aiming mostly at biofuels because of the CO2, biogenic CO2 we have in our country, because 20% of our electricity is from biomass. So we have certifiable biogenic CO2, and we can do green methanol, more in the same direction that Chile is doing in the south, while we are aiming at big-time green methanol for Europe, and maybe as a primary source for also SAF. The logistics for methanol is okay. Well, so that the H2U Invest is on
just
its
for
feet.
the lay people in the audience, sustainable aviation fuel. SAF?
We're thinking first of green methanol, then we'll see. But probably SAF could be done in the destination, because of the scale you need. Okay, and so on and so forth. We have also reviewing the institutional framework and the regulatory framework, so that we can accelerate these kind of approvals and permitting for projects. In an integral point of view, there is an inter-institutional workforce working together. Some of them are here. And at the same time, we are exploring the H2U in the offshore. That is a different situation, more aiming at longer term, but ammonia in the Atlantic directly to wind to ammonia. Well, and that is more or less the general progress we've been making. Probably next year we'll have the pilot project already underway. And today we signed an energy partnership with the German government, with Minister Habeck. And this opens a lot of doors about the off-taking and about also the cooperation in technical side. So we are very happy with the progress. Sorry about the long speech, but we think we are doing well.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Minister Borges now. And in June 2022, Angola made headlines by announcing that it will start exporting green ammonia next year in 2024. What are the main projects that will enable you to meet that goal? And what positions Angola for upscaling large-scale production and export of green hydrogen and derivatives like green ammonia?
Thank you very much. I will speak in Portuguese. We're basically at a starting point. And of course, we want mostly be able to use our main potential in terms of the energy production, which is basically hydropower. But also we're thinking of growing the production based on solar, and green energies in the energy matrix is around 65%. So we want to use that potential and also the low demand that we have in terms of energy consumption in order to really catch the train of hydrogen. We are right now working on the elaboration of that, which will be the national strategy for hydrogen, which should be approved during this year. And it's true that in 2022, we announced a first project based on a partnership with a German company. Probably it won't be possible to start exporting in 2024, but realistically speaking, 2025, it's possible that we have the beginning of these exports. It's a project with a capacity of about 280,000 tons of ammonium, and it's a project that's very interesting to Angola. Although we are a consumer of hydrogen, potentially, we are going to benefit those that will be its byproducts, especially green ammonia, which is going to create important value chains, reminding you that agriculture is a very important application, and we have a country which is essentially an agricultural country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me go on now to Secretary Wayon, if I may. And Patagonia, in the south of your country, is one of the world's windiest places, which makes it, of course, a natural site for large-scale production of green hydrogen. Tell us what your government is doing to boost such production, and in particular, how you're incentivizing investments in that sector and perhaps also in that region.
Bueno, en Argentina ya existía un marco jurídico en el año 2006.
In Argentina, there has been a regulatory framework in place since 2006. And before that, we had a pilot project that already produced wind power in Patagonia. Argentina is now working on its strategic plan for expanding and boosting green hydrogen. And in the coming month, we will make a legal proposal with tax incentives for the production of green hydrogen. Argentina has a great potential in terms of green hydrogen. In Patagonia, it can be produced on the basis of wind power, hydropower. In the north, we also have a lot of solar power. And in this project, Argentina wants to create tax incentives for the production of all kinds of hydrogen. Argentina also has the second largest reserve of shale gas worldwide, so we also have ideal conditions for the production of blue hydrogen by CO2 capture and storage. We are working on producing green hydrogen by using the potential of green energies, and we're also working on producing pink hydrogen. Argentina also has a consortium which is called H2AR. And it brings together the technology sector, the public and private sector, and the state company IPF from Argentina has already made advances in terms of the development of electrolyzers, and there are various pilot projects that are being produced for the production of green hydrogen. Argentina has the required know-how through the petrochemical industry, the mechanical industry, and we are in a good position thanks to Patagonia because there are great opportunities there to produce green hydrogen on an export scale. At the moment, a second pilot project is being launched there, and we are also talking to various investors who are waiting for the law to be agreed and also for the tax incentives that will enable them to carry out the project.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to go to our virtual guest now and then come back to you because you definitely have the overview on all of this, and I have a couple of points from what we've heard that I'd like to pass on to you. But let me go first to Clara Bowman, who is our virtual guest. This past December, it was mentioned by our Chilean minister, your company, together with partners in Europe and backed by the Chilean and German governments, launched its pioneering Haru Oni project, which is the world's first integrated commercial industrial scale hydrogen plant for making synthetic climate neutral fuels. Tell us, please, about the main factors, including international cooperation and the real mechanics of that made this project happen, and what best practices can you share?
Great, yes. Well, we actually just recently celebrated the first export of a green hydrogen derivative from Latin America to Great Britain last week, which was a few thousand litres of gasoline, which were sent from our production facility in the south of Chile to the United Kingdom. And so I think that that's a great start for what I hope will be an industry that will send not many thousands, but many millions or billions of litres of renewable e-fuel from Latin America around the world. And so when you talk about international cooperation, it's been actually an incredible journey for us in terms of bringing companies from all around the world together to work with us. We have obviously our colleagues and partners at Porsche and Siemens, the German government, the Chilean government, our partners at Enel Green Power, Italians. We have technology from all around the world. Johnson Matthey is the methanol reactor. ExxonMobil from the USA had the methanol to gasoline technology, which was built by Sinopec from China. So it's really been kind of a United Nations coming together to do this landmark facility. And really what it's taught us is how to integrate a facility like this. The interesting thing about e-fuel technology is that there's no single element that is actually, really a new piece of technology. What we're doing is taking other technology, which is off the shelf, and putting it together in a way that hasn't been done before. So we have the wind turbine, an electrolyzer, captured CO2. We mix that together in a methanol reactor, which is a technology which exists today in the oil and gas sector, and then take that methanol and do one further step of converting it to gasoline in a methanol to gasoline reactor, which again is technology which has been around for decades, just perhaps not used as much as we hope to see it used in the future. And so what's really new about this plant is taking all of those different elements in the chain, putting them together in an off-grid environment, and learning how those different elements can be optimized to work as efficiently as possible.
Thank you very much. And let me go to, is it Daria or Daria? Daria, okay. Let me go to Daria Nochevnik and ask you, because you have a comprehensive overview, I think, of this entire hydrogen value chain and many of the players who are on it somewhere. So when you hear about all these initiatives, all these partnerships, all these compacts, platforms, and so on that are being launched on multinational, European, bilateral, national level, are they really needed and effective in ramping up the market? And would you say they are complementary or are they competitive?
Thank you so much. A great question. And I think that indeed we see a number of international cross-border initiatives, both in the form of MOUs and partnership agreements that are being signed between countries, but also between companies. And I think what is really exciting is that we are finally moving from visions and strategies to actual implementation on the ground. And we have heard today about the ambitious implementation actions that are being taken by governments around the world, really. And I would like to also in particular take the opportunity to congratulate Minister Wilkinson and the Canadian government on unveiling the ambitious package of support measures for clean technologies. Just yesterday, the budget was unveiled with some really important support measures foreseen for clean technologies more broadly, but for including hydrogen. And I would also want to take this opportunity to echo some of the comments that Minister Wilkinson made around colors. We do feel that the use of color code system is perhaps not very helpful because it is critical to ensure that there is transparency on the carbon footprint, and we allow the least carbon-intensive solution to shine and to reveal its carbon benefits and also carbon savings and carbon abatement benefits, and also recognizing that countries across different geographies would want to build on their natural resource and infrastructure endowments, and to maximize these endowments to build the hydrogen economy in a way that would allow them to support their clean energy transition while at the same time providing clean jobs, boosting sustainable economic growth, and ensuring security of supply diversification. I think the exciting thing is that we know that there will be a number of potential new trade routes emerging across geographies, and that will change and improve the diversification of supplies for some of the major demand pool regions, and also unlock new opportunities for the exporters. And I think oftentimes we talk about announcements, and it's true that from the industry side, the pipeline of mature project announcements is growing. We're almost at 1,000 mature project announcements across geographies. But of course, announcements do not equal final investment decisions. Yeah. And while out of this 1,000 projects, approximately 80% of projects could be unlocked, and project developers aim at go live and either full or partial implementation of these projects by 2030. So we could unlock, in principle, over 300 billion in investments by 2030. But some projects will go forward, others will not, and we actually expect natural attrition in projects similar to what we have seen at the inception of the renewable power solutions uptake. So when it comes to wind and solar projects, we saw this natural attrition taking place over time. But the good news is that we have moved from 20 billion in FIDs and final investment decisions in projects to 30 billion in just a year. It used to take us it used to take us 10 years to get to 1 billion. And now we did 10 billion within almost a year. So relative to hydrogen history, what we are witnessing today is unprecedented. And this is a huge step forward. And right now, there is an opportunity for governments and industry to really synchronize efforts to push projects ahead and to move from announcements and strategies to real implementation on the ground. And this is exciting.
And tell us one more thing before we now take a look at our audience poll. You talked about attrition. I think you said 80% at most could expect to be true success stories. Is that right?
80% are actually aiming at go live either full or partial by 2030. So that could really help accelerate our transition.
And the attrition rate, what rate at the moment would you expect of true success stories? You know, because we're hearing a lot of good sales pitches, and what is the factor that will determine, if you can boil it down to just one or a few, that will determine which projects are successful and which success stories were perhaps somewhat less solid than
Sure. Well, the short answer is time will tell. But the most important focus areas, I think, today for both governments and industry, there are three pieces that would really, and three focus areas that will really make a difference. One is demand. So demand pull measures that are introduced across geographies, we see that they have a material impact. And while the supply-side measures play a crucial role, enabling that visibility of offtake and security of offtake. So security of demand is almost the other side of the coin of security of supply. So this will play a crucial role for projects to move forward. And actually that will have a spillover effect. If we get the visibility of a demand, the other pieces of the supply chain will follow. The second one is permitting. We see that permitting is still a huge issue both for renewable power projects and increasingly for hydrogen. So streamlining and accelerating permitting process will be absolutely critical. And the third one, and this is actually relating to your first question on international cooperation, we absolutely need cooperation on standards, and we need to pursue mutual recognition between the emerging certification schemes for hydrogen and derivatives.
Absolutely, and I want to come back to that at the end. But let's take a quick look now at the answers to our audience polls, and then I want to get the briefest of commentaries from everybody else. So a very, very clear almost three-quarter majority saying it's those hard-to-abate industrial sectors that are going to be the biggest or most promising large-scale application. And then we have 18% saying shipping and aviation, the hard-to-abate mobility sectors. I'm guessing that would have gone down significantly if we'd include private cars on there. Power generation, 7%, heating, 3%. So by far and away, it's hard-to-abate industry. And to speed things up, I'm going to ask the speakers, anybody disagree with that result and say, no, we think it's mobility? Anybody?
Maybe something I would add that interestingly, I mentioned this figure, 30 billion, how we saw this increase in FIDs. We see top two sectors picking up industrial applications, but the second one is mobility, and that includes also heavy-duty transport and passenger vehicles.
Right.
And I think the
passenger vehicles as well.
Yeah, and the role of fuel cell electric vehicles really cannot be underestimated, as it would make a really material difference in terms of improving the competitiveness, bringing the cost down, also for electric vehicles, and ensuring diversification. Because when we think about dependencies, we are often thinking about trade flows and also the dependencies around this physical infrastructure. But another form of dependency is the dependency on critical raw materials. And actually, this is the one that you're able to tackle thanks to the deployment of FCEVs, because the use of critical raw materials is orders of magnitude much less compared to BEVs. So you need both. You need both BEVs and FCEVs to transition in the mobility sector. And I think perhaps this is something that could be added to this picture.
It is indeed, but it could also be an entire session, so we're not going to go too deep on this. It's a beloved topic of discussion, so Minister Paganini, you wanted to comment?
No, just to say that there are really two not competing but complementary needs, and the mobility, hard to abate mobility can be solved quite quickly if you have green fuels, because you have the logistic network already ready, and maybe the hydrogen is a more direct hydrogen takes some more time. So I would bet a little bit on mobility in the short term.
And shipping comes into this also in a very interesting way, because shipping, of course, is not just about consuming this as fuel, but transporting it as shippers, so carriers. So that, of course, also gives shipping a kind of a two-edged sword in this.
Yeah, but just to complement, I mean, I wouldn't challenge the order of the ranking, but maybe the distance. And mobility is something that is gaining speed. I think probably faster than industrial applications.
Okay, interesting. Anybody else? Okay, then I'm going to go on to another round of discussion so that hopefully we can tease out a few more issues. Let us now take a deeper dive on how we make large-scale application a win-win for all, with a focus on trade and on framework conditions, meaning financial mechanisms, policy instruments, standards, and partnerships. So I will start with Minister Paganini, if I may. And the Green Hydrogen Roadmap for Uruguay states that 35,000 skilled jobs related to green hydrogen could be created in the foreseeable future in your country. Where is the highest potential for local value creation in Uruguay? And is this on the radar for your country's citizens? Do they expect to benefit from production of green hydrogen?
Well, of course, this is the key issue, that people have to be committed to this project in a very broad basis. That is why our roadmap has been put in public consultation. I have met with all the leaders of all the political parties with political representation, so as to gain a big consensus. It already happened when we did the first transformation of the electric generation. There was a multi-particular agreement in 2010, and that has to continue forward so that to keep the project going, because it's a long-term project. On the other hand, the 35,000 jobs for Uruguay is a lot of jobs. Maybe it's not a lot of jobs in Germany, but in Uruguay it's a lot. But that is 2040 horizon of our roadmap. And it's mostly related to local industry we can put up. We are thinking about, as I was telling, the green fuels. And also, and for us, and also for other countries here, it was mentioned the green fertilizer should be in the road. Uruguay is in the basin of the River Plate, a very highly agricultural producing region of the world, with Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay all using lots of imported fertilizers. So that should be on the roadmap also, and also creating value in our country.
Thank you very much. And I will go to Minister Pardo with a similar question. Chile's national hydrogen strategy envisages the green hydrogen industry creating 100,000 highly sophisticated jobs in the country. How will growing hydrogen exports benefit local communities? And in which segment across the hydrogen value chain do you see the highest potential for local jobs and value creation? And what kind of workers are you going to need to do those jobs?
Let me first, I mean, this is not just a thing about numbers. There's some qualitative information that is really important to highlight. And I would like to steal a story from Clara's project. So one of the chiefs of a laboratory in Harwani used to work in the state-owned oil company. And I had the chance to talk with him before joining Harwani. And I mean, he was a happy person. He liked his job, but the oil operation on that region has been slowly dying off for about 2 decades. So you can feel sort of the anguish of the people that it's involved in that economic activity, because they know there's something that it's kind of going to die off sometime down the road. And I talked to him when we inaugurated Harwani plant, and it's kind of a different person, much more optimistic, has a different view on the future. And I think that's what, it's not just about creating jobs, but also to giving communities a chance to see the future with different lenses. Because in the regions like Magallanes, when there is a oil operation that is dying off in the other hub that we have in the north, in which the coal operation is kind of dying off too, bringing those communities the opportunity to jump into green economy for the foreseeable future. It's something that is not just about numbers, but answering your question, we're trying to push as far as we can in the value chain. We recently launched a consultation with builders of electrolyzers. We're trying to understand what can we do in order to bring the value chain, a larger part of the value chain closer to, within Chile. I was today in the Siemens facility in which they are building electrolyzers, and I talked to the workers there, and really the ability to create those industrial jobs that are associated to the entire value chain is what we can do different now. And we are aiming not just at the operation, but try to push a little harder down the road for the value chain.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. And I will go to Minister Wilkinson with a similar question. Canada, of course, home to many Indigenous communities, many of them living in remote, rural areas of the country. You now have more than 100 companies active in the green hydrogen sector, working on technological solutions, including electrolyzers, fuel cell systems. How will their activities benefit such communities, also Indigenous communities, and what steps are you taking to ensure development of the skills that people will need to take advantage of these jobs?
So that's a very broad question, but what I would say is, as I said before, there are different parts of the country, Canada is quite a large country, that are pursuing different pathways to the production of ultra-low carbon hydrogen. On the eastern coast of Canada, where much of the focus is on Europe and on Germany in particular, these activities will take place in rural and remote communities, which the jobs and the economic opportunities will be enormously important in terms of enabling industry to develop in areas that have struggled from an economic perspective in the past. That's true of the construction of these facilities, it's true of ongoing maintenance, but it also is, the production of ammonia, the facilities that actually will be located not in urban centers, but in rural ones. In the West, where we are a major producer of oil and gas at the present time, hydrogen offers a pathway, assuming that you do the appropriate things with respect to reductions of methane in the upstream and carbon capture at high levels in the production, offers a pathway for that area of the country that is going to see changes with respect to the utilization and the combustion of fossil fuels. And so that is another pathway to create jobs and economic opportunity going forward. But I would say that, your point about Indigenous communities is a very important one. In Canada, we are in the process of working through what we call reconciliation with Indigenous communities. One key part of that has to be about economic reconciliation. Indigenous communities, by and large, are poorer in Canada than other communities, and they have less in the way of services than other communities. And so part of what we are doing is trying to ensure that there are opportunities for equity participation in many of these projects so that long-term benefits flow back to the communities to be able to enable them to do their own development, to provide their own services. So that's a critically important piece. We see this as something that can actually affect many different parts of the country, and often parts that have historically been or will, on a go-forward basis, be struggling a little bit economically to have those kinds of opportunities. I think our hydrogen roadmap says we will create 350,000 jobs associated with the hydrogen economy. I think it could be larger, but it is confronting the challenge of climate change in a manner that actually can enable countries like Canada and Chile and others to seize the economic opportunities that come from a transition to a low-carbon future.
Thank you very much. And I'll go over to Minister Borges, if I may, with a related question, because we do talk a lot here at the BETD about the necessity of a just energy transition. And in fact, when Minister Habeck visited Africa and your neighboring country, Namibia, last December, he said, I quote, "The last thing we can accept is a kind of new energy imperialism similar to the old imperialism of oil," and saying that, in fact, Germany would be partnering with countries in the global south on also generating benefits for the local population. So would you say that the Angolan government shares that kind of a focus? And in your own energy partnership with Germany that you have engaged in, are you trying to use the buildup of the industry for socio-economic development in Angola?
Precisely. What we want most of all is promote a partnership that is beneficial for both countries. When it comes to the energy transition, we have a view similar to other African countries. We need a transition based on our energy resources. Angola produces oil, we can't forget that. And gas is a resource we can rely on to produce energy and to cover our needs in terms of energy consumption, be it now, be it going forward. So this transition has to be done based on the use of natural gas. Green hydrogen comes into the equation as a resource that Angola can produce and export once we have identified the export markets, and our production will be directed toward these export markets. But as it has already been said, we have to create value. We have to create local jobs. We've gathered experience in terms of producing oil. We've got thousands of workers working in the oil production sector, and with the phasing out of the production of oil in the future, we have to know that we have to transform and convert this labor force, allowing them to adapt to the hydrogen industry. So there are lots of benefits for Angola and for Germany too. And what we want to do is establish a mutually beneficial relationship. That is the principle that guides all the countries that are carrying out programs to develop hydrogen production. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Minister Paganini, I know that you do need to leave us now. You have an urgent appointment. Thank you so much for being with us on this panel, and we appreciate very much your contributions to our discussion.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I have a plane to catch. Just one remark. This is a global effort, and the Global South has an opportunity to play a part in the reconfiguration of the energy market and around the world. And I think we have something to provide. So let's work together globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And I will go to Secretary Wayon now, if I may, to talk about two other aspects of a just and sustainable transition. And the first aspect would be how to share the dividends from this theoretically upcoming green hydrogen boom. So how we ensure that local communities do get benefits from this and not simply the project developers, the exporters, and so on. And secondly, how you, in a region like Patagonia, and I think for all of us who have ever seen images of that region or perhaps had the great good fortune to travel there, realize how sensitive and fragile that environment is. How do you go about ensuring that this new upscaling is done in harmony with the natural environment?
Bueno, Argentina tiene gran potencial.
Argentina has a huge potential because the vision of the political sector in Argentina is built on many different regions. So if we think that there is potential not only in the field of hydrogen, but also in the field of other renewable energies, like, for example, non-conventional gas, but also mining lithium and many other things in Argentina in terms of fuels, but particularly in the area of hydrogen and renewable energies. Argentina not only works to create jobs in the area of photovoltaic systems and wind parks, but we also want to promote value creation chains, supply chains, and there are strategic advantages. The state company, the Argentinian state company for fuel, is a fuel company, IPF, which has a specific vision. It focuses on renewable energies and on the development of lithium, of electrolysis, and also on various other chemical processes. And it also looks into the storage of carbon and hydrogen together with technical systems. And that creates a connection for the ramp-up of technology, because we want all sectors and society to benefit from the income generated from this technological transition, because what is good for one sector is also good for other sectors. And the benefits and also technical skill and expertise can be transferred from one sector to others, and they can be expanded up to a skills export. That is what the experience has shown. And Argentina also has non-conventional gas exploitation and other hydrocarbons that are used and explored in Argentina. And at the moment, we are in the process of carrying out a short-term energy transition. Especially thanks to hydrogen, Argentina has a very strong pillar in the development of fuels, and above all, Argentina is developing technology and know-how on the basis of technologies such as hydrogen.
Thank you very much. And I will now go to Clara Bowman and ask you, from the point of view of a project operations manager, also project development, what are the drivers of the kind of parameters that we're talking about in terms of local value creation, rules and norms for involvement of local communities and so on? Are they the ESG factors that are important to the companies that are involved? Are they government regulations? Are they standards imposed by multilateral development lenders? What are the key levers for essentially those kind of prerequisites?
Well, I would say probably all of the above. We're producing a product which is a low carbon product, but it also needs to be a sustainable product. And so that means that we really need to engage in a real and sincere way and ask ourselves the question, is what we are doing sustainable? And that's, as a company, something that we've done since the beginning of the development of our projects. And there are different ways that that can be done. For example, we could have, when we first started developing these projects, purchased the land that we are going to be developing the wind parks on, but we decided to do that under long-term leases. And that's because instead of just buying the land up front, at that time, no one was talking about green hydrogen in Magallanes, and so we could have bought the land at agricultural prices. But instead of that, we decided to go into a partnership with the landowners. And so we have a typical scheme where people receive a percentage of the energy that's generated from their land is received as income by those landholders. And so that means that they are going to have up to 3 to 4 times the income which they have currently under their agricultural operations. That means that they're going to be able to have the dollars to be able to invest, to be able to abate some of the climate change impacts that they have, which are hitting really hard on their agricultural business at the moment. It makes them more resilient. And so there's just this win-win that's generated from having this additional cash flow coming into those communities. That's in addition to the kind of just energy transition points that various of the ministers, including Minister Pardo, were making around having a region which is traditionally an oil and gas region, where we can see that those oil and gas jobs are disappearing. And now we can replace those jobs with jobs in a new sector, which not only is a sector which can continue on almost indefinitely, as we're talking about something that's renewable, it's not something that's going to run out, the wind will keep blowing, but also a sector which is very similar and has a lot of the knowledge base that they have had in the oil and gas. So we're not asking them to go away and learn a completely new trade. What we're asking these people to do, as in the case of Heriberto, our laboratory manager, is to use all of the skills that they've developed through a lifetime of working in oil and gas, but transfer those skills across to doing that for a renewable project producing low carbon fuels. And so that's something that's really exciting for us, not only in Magallanes, but in the other places around the world where we're working. For example, in Texas, we're developing a very large-scale e-fuels facility, and we've had a very similar response from the community there. They're just so excited about being able to work new industry, which uses all of their skills from the oil and gas. Obviously, Texas is an oil and gas location, but in a way that they can see has a future and is sustainable. And so that's, I think, a great element of e-fuels is that kind of social justice, just energy factor.
Thank you very much. And that was my bridge for getting back to certification, Daria Nichevnik. So let me ask you a two-part question, starting with the basic question whether we need a global standard for hydrogen certification in order to maximize opportunities for the green hydrogen economy, and if so, who can and should drive development of that standard?
Thank you. I think that I would actually break it down into two. So part of the development and common understanding and transparency on the sustainability attributes of hydrogen has to do with the development of global standards. And actually, as we meet today, the ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, is meeting and discussing the development of a common standard methodology for assessing all hydrogen production, conditioning, and transport pathways. And this is absolutely critical, to have a common global approach to how we assess the carbon footprint, because country A may adopt a threshold of, let's say, 2.5 kilos of CO2 equivalent per kilo of hydrogen to call hydrogen, let's say, clean or low carbon. And another country B may adopt the same threshold. But if you use different methodologies to calculate that and to arrive to this figure, you cannot compare those two. So absolutely, we need to be able to compare apples to apples. So the development of this common global ISO standard is critical. And actually, countries delegate their national experts to join this group in order to contribute to the development of this common global standard. Now, certification is another key issue, because a certificate is a document that allows one to evidence that a certain unit of hydrogen has certain carbon footprint and other sustainability attributes, for example, pertaining to the use of land, water, or the social aspects of production. And the certificates are informed by methodologies and standards. So when it comes to certification schemes, we see that, broadly speaking, the countries around the world are in the process of creating and designing their own national certification schemes for hydrogen, and in many ways, these mirror some jurisdiction-specific requirements and some policy choices in terms of hydrogen incentivizing and deployment in these countries. And those policy choices will be inherently diverse because of, again, this willingness of countries to maximize their existing natural resources and infrastructure endowment. So we believe that in the certification space, while full harmonization is tricky, what we need is mutual recognition. Mutual recognition between certification schemes, national certification schemes that emerge to enable transparency, credibility, and to underpin cross-border trade.
Now, you are based in Europe, and the European Commission has now, in February, issued a legal definition of renewable hydrogen. What's your thinking on that? Will it boost or could it hinder upscaling of green hydrogen?
There is a good saying that perfection is often the enemy of the good.
Yes, that was a Barack Obama favorite.
And I think that Europe has been striving for perfection for almost 3 years, and there were Europe has spent 3 years trying to come up with a definition of renewable hydrogen, and we have seen how that put to hold some of the investment decisions that could have been taken during that time. And of course, right now we still don't have full clarity, but there is an important step forward that has been taken with defining and taking a step further in defining those rules for qualifying hydrogen as renewable for the purposes of compliance with the Renewable Energy Directive in particular. And while some of the criteria, the merit of some of these criteria is debatable, because unfortunately the Delegated Act looks only at at synergies between hydrogen and power sector alone, and negates a little bit the interplay with the EU cap-and-trade system, the EU ETS, and also the gas infrastructure and the downstream liquid fuels market. But putting that to the side, having clarity is better than continued regulatory uncertainty. And simplicity and certainty is something that is absolutely critical for the market in order to lift the projects off the ground.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will now close this panel. Absolutely fascinating discussion, far more concrete and indeed a little bit closer to the sense that this is really now getting off the ground than we have been over the last few years. So many thanks for sharing your success stories and also the prerequisites for making it happen. Let's give them a warm round of applause.